Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alka Bhanot, and I am the co-founder of Indian and with me is...
My name is Sean Siva, and I'm a board member.
Today we have a wonderful film for you. It's called LEOPARD'S TRIBE, and we are honored and excited to host the filmmaker Miriam Chandy Menacherry.
Thank you, everyone, for being here on a Sunday morning. And a very special thank you to Alka and Indie. I think I have a very long association with Indie. I think my first independent documentary came here to Austin, and it is the first film that Indie ran with.
Yes, and that's where we started with the archival project. Indie started in 2013, and the first film we ever screened was Miriam's film, The Rat Race. So it's also the other first with Miriam is that her second documentary, Liari Notes, is what we screened as the opening night film of the first Indie Film Festival. She's super special for us.
Yeah, so it's really special to see people in the audience. I think for a filmmaker, it's your body of work and you grow as a creative individual. So it's very special that someone has seen my first film and now they're here for my fourth film. And therefore, Austin is also a very special place for me that all four of my films have screened here. And this film actually started in the pandemic. I just wanted to set it up a bit. I was finishing a very difficult film about trafficking, and it took me like almost, I think, 5 years I had been shooting, and then the pandemic struck and it was stuck in the post-production, and I had been shooting that film along India's northeastern borders. And it was that moment where everyone sits back in the pandemic and kind of questions what you're doing. You have to pause. Everyone, I think everywhere was just pausing and thinking about what they were doing. And then right in the city that I was living in, which is Mumbai, the commercial capital of India, there were protests breaking out because more than 2,000 trees had to be felled. And like my background before becoming a filmmaker was that I was set to do biology and be a conservationist. So of course this is something I was following, and I was noticing that there was this indigenous family who was the face of the protests, even though people from all walks of life were in fact joining the protests. And the space where this family lived is very special in Mumbai because it's a city of 17 million people, and yet we have a forest within the city. And it has one of the highest leopard populations, like density. And the strange thing is, even though I live in high-rise apartments in Mumbai, I live on the 10th floor, we do have leopards come to the high-rise apartments. And the kind of trepidation and fear it sort of raises in this context was something that you live with, right? It's like you're worried about your kids. There may be a leopard spotted in the taxi stand in the morning, so that's going out on the residence group. But when actually the leopard was trapped in the cage, and I got a call at 5 in the morning that said, the leopard is trapped. So we went down, and when I actually saw the leopard in this cage, I had a very strange sensation. It just felt really wrong. There was this majestic beast with its eyes flaming and in a cage. And I think it begged the question of who is encroaching on whose territory. And I think that always was at the back of my head. And so when these protests erupted all over again during the pandemic, you realize that is the fundamental or the universal question that everyone asks in big cities or rapidly growing cities. Where does the forest end and where does the city begin? And is there really a way forward where people can coexist? And I think when I went down and met this indigenous family and I saw the way they lived, and paintings of leopards on almost every wall, where the leopard was a daily friend and a visitor, and they worship the leopard because it's their god, Wagoba, who's the top of the predator chain. I think I felt like this was a story worth telling, exploring this whole space from the point of view of this family for whom the forest is the home. And they are, even though they are indigenous family, they are city slick. They do work in the city, they are constantly negotiating the city. So I found it a very unique point of view. And so the 2 years of the pandemic is when I filmed the Leopard's Tribe, and that's what you're going to see today. And I do believe I try to like film it over seasons in Mumbai. It's a bit like Austin or Texas. We don't have that many seasons. It's like a summer and a rainy season, and that's about it. But I did try to film it over the seasons in Mumbai, so it is sort of set up as a climate change film as well. So you will have to read the subtitles, and we can speak after.
Thank you, Miriam. Thank you so much.
First of all, congratulations on this wonderful film, and it has been wonderful to follow your career since your first films were presented at IFFY. You've seen several of them, and I really also wanted to thank you for taking us into the forest of Mumbai in this film. And I'm wondering if you can talk about how familiar you were with the forests and with Array and the Adivasi people prior to making the film.
Thank you, Holly. And yes, you've hosted my previous films as well. So I think everyone in Mumbai is familiar with the forests. They're like the welcome green space in a concrete jungle. And RA is the sort of buffer zone. So there are a lot of people who just go for morning walks. You can pick up vegetables. Almost everyone in the city has a strong association with that space. The forest itself, which is Sanjay Gandhi National Park, there are, students are taken in bus tours. In the rains, people like to just go in there and get wet, and that's a way of celebrating the city and the monsoons. So, I think every Mumbaiker does have a very strong association with the forest, and that's also my association with the forest. The more direct association was the fact that I live pretty close to this area, so we do have leopards visiting us in our high-rise apartment. So we've actually lived with that news of like a leopard in our colony and like for many months. And usually when there is a leopard creating trouble, from Nayan, I've learned that they each have like names. They can recognize leopards from the spotting, like the spots. They have names for them and characters. So it's usually a teenager, like our own teenagers. They're the ones creating a little difficulty, and especially if they're separated from the parent, they go through their own trauma. So someone like a conservationist kind of knows what the reason is and addresses that. Whereas I think as city people, we tend to react with fear and in fact compound the problem because we haven't understood why it's happened.
Sure. It was so inspiring to see the way you showed how the protest movement came together with people from the city and students and people who from the tribe who brought everyone together. And I'm curious if you feel like the proximity to the forest and people's connection to the forest helped them realize the importance of participating in that movement.
So the surprising thing is that we started shooting after the protests. So in many ways, if you see the way the film is stitched together, I won't say that I am the only filmmaker. There were a lot of citizens who have donated their phone footage. As you saw, it was very tricky to shoot during the protests. Like the police were actually cracking down on the protests and any sort of recording. So we had a really huge task to kind of stitch together what happened during the protests and the actual tree felling, which was by like sort of citizen cameras, and many of them even said you can use the footage but don't give our names. And so I see it in a sense of stitching together archives, citizen archives in that sense. people feel very strongly about the forest. More so, all of this was sort of escalated during the pandemic, where I think Prakash Boyd put so poignantly that, when people are willing to pay thousands and thousands for an oxygen cylinder, here you are cutting down 2,000 trees at the blink of an eye when that's an oxygen factory. I think he put it in such clear sort of commercial sense in that, and it made a whole lot of sense. So people do realize in Mumbai, and I think Mumbai is like one of the most expensive cities to live in, like it's often compared even to New York. So there's this constant tussle between the real estate lobby, which is hand in glove with the political forces that be. And so people are well aware of it, and therefore you see, and I have tried to tell a conservation story, but you see with the change of political regimes how so fast the policies can kind of collapse, and people are very aware of it, and they do try to resist, whatever profession they may be, they did come together. And another thing about Mumbai is it's like New York. People have no time, they're just kind of rushing back and forth between their work. But for something like this, you could see the kind of mobilization, people, like whether it was a mother, a student, they all did come together, and that says a lot.
Yeah.
So.
And is there an update about where the movement is right now since you completed the film?
The movement is very much alive, but unfortunately the metro construction continues, and I think they're hoping that there's some sort of reprieve from the Supreme Court. And people ask me, can't you submit your documentary as sort of evidence that it's so clear it's a forest?
Yeah.
I mean, like if you have a leopard who's the topmost predator, then you have everyone down the food chain. So you know the kind of biodiversity that is present there. But they still need proof that it is a forest, and like where does it end and all of that. So I guess it will continue to be a sort of ongoing tussle.
Yeah. I found it very inspiring watching your film in this moment in American politics, where it does feel like the fight is never over. You think maybe you've gotten a little further, and once again, you've got to pick up the fight again. So how does the tribe see the future and their role in this movement?
So that's what I love. I think for all of us, we do have a stake in that the forests are there, and it is the green lungs of our city. But for the Boyer family and the Adivasis who live there, it is their home, their actual home. It's everything that they are, including their identity, their cultural practices. So for them, it's not something that's going to reach a peak. Every day they are sort of putting up that resistance and that fight, and that's partly why within the film you see this push to kind of push them out of their homes so that they move to sort of slum rehabilitation centers, and then you no longer have the resistance and the path is sort of clear. And their case is very complicated because they are indigenous, like the original inhabitants, and because of that, they never felt like the government has not really given them paperwork that all of us have, right? And so that is used to kind of delegitimize their claim. I think this is a story that you see in every part of the world, like delegitimize their claim over their own home. So it's this almost very difficult battle to fight. And I think someone like Prakash Boyd, who is educated, and he has been careful to keep his documentation like from his grandfather's generation onwards. And he kind of encourages other people in the tribal hamlet to also try to build some kind of a paper trail. But otherwise, when I asked him this, like, how will you prove it? He said, you just have to visit, because our culture is so unique, like the way that we keep our homes, we write our histories on our walls, we follow all this, it's so undeniable. And if like the government had to do it, they could only do it with us, where we can say, you know, these are all the families who live here because we follow these sort of cultural practices.
I love how you tell part of the story through the art that the family is making. How familiar were you with that, and how did you think about it as a filmmaker, seeing them create it?
So the art you see in the film, it's called Wardley art, and it's really become, I think people all over the world are waking up to how powerful it is by using very sort of basic motives, but the ideation is so amazing through that. So I was very familiar with Wardley art, but to stumble on a family of artists, like the entire family is a family of artists, right from Prakash Boyd to his daughter, who's a well-known artist in fact, and the youngest son, who is in fact not just drawing like you see in his books in the film, but he actually ended up being a second camera person. So he is got an artistic eye. So in the pandemic, when it became really difficult to move around, there were like lockdown restrictions where not more than 2 people could even reach the location. And Akash Boyd, every time we were filming, he was so curious about the camera. He would keep asking my camera person, can you show me how to like set up a frame? So we did show him. And it turned out so fortunate because in fact that wedding scene that you see, yeah, we could not reach the location because it was a complete lockdown of the city. And so we literally told Akash, you are there and we've left a camera with you, can you film? Yes. So he filmed and he's been showing up at every one of our screenings because he really feels the film belongs as much to him, because not just is it a story about his family, but I think he sees it as a form of collaborative filmmaking where he is also the storyteller in a sense.
Yes, great continuity as a filmmaker to have that on your team. So I wanted to open it up to the audience for any questions that you might have for Miriam about the film. You can raise your hands high, it'll be easier for me to see that.
I do not have a question, but I have a feedback and a compliment. I belong to Amchi, Mumbai. I'm from Maharashtra, and we used to call it Bombay earlier, right? So through your film, I actually lived my life 40 years ago when I was 10. And in school, we used to go for a picnic to RML Colony. And I love the details that you have showed about the Warli song, the Warli painting, the dance, even the detail of how they cook their food and how she's making bread on the, in the house. And I think it's a great movie. I really, really enjoyed it. And a Sunday afternoon very well spent for me.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to meet another person from Mumbai. Now that Austin's going to be my home for 9 months. Yeah.
Yes, over here.
Miriam, what an amazing movie documentary made. I mean, it's no surprise because each one is so different. A couple of questions. One is, what's happening with the case right now? Because I know that this was filming, you produced this about last year? It was last year?
2022. Like we finished in 2022.
So what's the status right now with the case? And then the second is, I love the logo. It's their art, right? You've incorporated that. The second part of it is, what are your plans to get this really important movie? Because like The Elephant Whisperer, I see this as something that truly is not just from India. It's actually talking about climate change in a very real way. The way the water is affecting us, the global warming. So those two questions.
Thank you, Shaku, right? I can't see clearly because it's dark over there, but I can recognize your voice. The film, I'm going backwards with your question. So the film was actually commissioned by BBC So we did run a smaller version on BBC called The Tigress of Ariet. It was much shorter, so I feel very sad to see like a 15-minute version of the film that goes on BBC, but still it was important, like you said, that it goes out to the widest possible audience. So it went on all their regional languages, including BBC, in English as well as Hindi and Marathi. And I think especially Premila Boyd and the Boyd family were very thrilled that it went in BBC Marathi, because it was seen widely, and I think Premila is referred to as the Tigress of Ariet. So now, and what was the other question you asked about the art?
About the case.
Yeah, updated.
About the case, yeah. So the case has had many flip-flops with the change of government, and as per the current government's policy, the metro shed continues to be built. But Stalin, the environmentalist you see in the film, he's filed several public interest litigations with a lot of paperwork and all of that. So their hope is that the reprieve will come from the Supreme Court of India. But there is a huge backlog in cases, legal cases to be heard because of the pandemic again. So yeah, we don't know when it will come up for hearing, and yeah. But the stay order on the felling of trees remains, that they were successful in kind of stopping that from happening.
Did you get to see a leopard while making this film?
I think we kept reaching pretty close, and I did get to see, I think, a mother leopard with cubs sometimes when we were shooting the drone footage. So briefly kind of spot that. But the leopard footage that you see in the film is actually the environmentalist Nayan. Nayan and his team are experts in capturing leopards. It's a really painstaking process, and like I said, they not only set up camera traps to capture it, but they also recognize every single leopard by the spotting. They have names, they know the age, they know the territory, they know everything. So yeah.
So the question's about the artwork, because a lot of it is being made and it looks like it could be fragile to the elements. So what is the process for having it on the house, keeping it on the house, or do the rains affect it, etc.?
Yeah, it's absolutely organic artwork. So the walls keep changing just as the stories of the neighborhood keep changing. So you see how the wedding became a scene on the walls when their son was getting married. So that is a scene that actually went up fresh, whereas an older scene, if you saw, there was a bridge with a helicopter above it, and so that vanished. While I was filming also, it vanished. So it's like the stories keep changing, the artwork also keeps changing, and it's beautiful. It's like, it's like this turning the pages of a book, and each time you go, there's a new story up.
Could you talk a little bit about, I'm sorry, I don't remember her name, but the wife?
Mm-hmm.
She was a really compelling character through this film. Yeah, could you talk a little bit about what it was like to interact with her?
Yes, that's a really good question actually. So when I was following the story, I come from a journalism background, so it's usually, I'm observing things, but it's also I'm kind of filtering the news that I read. So when I was reading the papers, the person who was always sort of framed in the photographs in the papers was Prakash Boyd, the husband. And so when I went the first time to shoot, I thought he would be the main sort of focus of my film. But as it happens with documentary, you're really quiet and you keep filming, as quietly as possible. So you're this fly on the wall. And the person who drew me really close, who I felt had such a strong bond to her surroundings, and had this very natural way of also speaking, not being at all conscious about the camera or anybody for that matter, was Premila Boyd. So very soon I realized like I wanted to focus a little more on her. Also because I do feel that somewhere like where Prakash goes into the city to work, a day job, Premila does have a much stronger sort of bond with her immediate environment, and I do see that in women and conservation issues. I see that women are very rooted to their ecosystems, and right from the way she kind of picks up crabs during the crab season, or the way she cleans mushrooms, or the way she climbed that tree. I mean, like, wow. So I found it very telling in every single shot, her bond with her environment. So that's something I really wanted to keep focusing on. And of course, I started shooting after she had been arrested. So those images you see are what they gave me at that traumatic time of like the little that they had captured, including we were really lucky to get phone footage. When we went through the phone footage, we could actually trace her role. Like there were these few clips of her actually resisting the police. So we got glimpses of this fiery, feisty person that she was. And then when we were shooting live, when they were to be, they got the notices to prove that they were in fact Adivasis, we actually saw the tigress emerge. I mean, she was the one at the forefront, really bold and strong in what she wanted to say and completely fearless. So yeah, I think that somewhere it's instinctive you feel about a character that you're following, and over 2 years you really kind of understand who she is.
Yeah, and it's so lucky to find a character like that where she's not telling you that bond, she's showing you,
literally
she's
living it. Yeah, she lives it.
Welcome to Austin here.
Thank you.
So, during one of the scenes during a retreat, there was a politician portrayed. Is that Karl Hartreid's son? He seemed very articulate and
Yes.
kind of
Yes.
and-
Thank you, Sampreet. Good to be back here. That is Aditya Thackeray, who is the grandson actually, and he was the environment minister at the time I was filming. Like I said, it was during the pandemic, so it's always with the masks. So it's like how much you can glimpse of him. But I did find him, I mean, I'm always skeptical of politicians and what their different interests are. But having said that, it's something that we just filmed, right? It was like an event. It was World Tribal Day, and he appeared as a guest. And that was his actual speech that we just recorded on the fly. And I found him to be quite progressive in the way he also interpreted the role of Adivasis. I think people tend to think, they are like ancient traditions, it's not relevant to us, but he very clearly made the connection about how they have something to teach all of us, because they haven't broken that bond with nature and that ability to coexist. So I find him to be quite progressive, and he walked the talk even with policy, which is difficult for politicians, because like I said, the real estate lobby is the driving force that keeps politicians like sort of floating.
here, but did you have the opportunity to interview anybody from was it the construction?
The government.
From the
yeah.
government, okay.
Yeah, so this is something that we got, and he was the government in power at that time. For the BBC version, we did get the government that toppled this one and came in, and we did get their official statement as to why they were going ahead with the metro. And they do have a legitimate argument in that they say that a metro line also transports a lot of passengers, and therefore you're cutting down on the carbon footprint. But having said that, I think having documented the film for so long, I saw how many times they switched the location of this metro car shed. In fact, where they have gone ahead and built it now, they first said that's under dispute. And what Prakash Boyer says as well, that we are not against the car shed, but we are against the fact that you feel it should come up exactly in the middle of a forest. So I find that a very pertinent argument that no doubt we need mass transport systems, efficient ones, but somewhere you need longevity in your vision of like how do you sustain huge cities of 17 million people, and where is the balance of like development? Where do you actually put up these sites so that there's like some sort of sustainability and long-term vision?
Maybe talking a little bit about the filmmaking process, particularly in post-production, and weaving together all of these disparate elements to come up with the film, including sound design, etc.
So, Alka, you know that one of my biggest sort of triggers to make my film, like I'm always following different sort of subjects that interest me, but somewhere there's also something that's a visceral reaction, and somehow it's always music. Like most of my films, finally when I've gotten up and I've picked up the camera and said I'm going ahead with the shooting, it's music. And I did see this viral track by Swadesi and Prakash Boyd that went viral, the Wadli Revolt, and it really spoke to me, also because of the kind of very contemporary language it was using of like Gen Z. So I knew that the music is going to be a big element in the storytelling. Besides that, I think like a story dictates how it will be told. I love like shooting long takes and focusing more on the camera, but this was a film that demanded something else, which was also whole sections where I was not able to film, to use archives and stitch together the film. So in that sense, create those rhythms also with the music and the sound and archives and the short footage. So yeah, I think the editor also had to kind of discover these rhythms, and it was seasonal in that sense. The overall arch of the film was to capture over seasons, so like to discover the rhythm within each season as well. So yeah, that's how we went.
So Miriam, you'll be in Austin for a little while, so we'll at UT, I believe. Could you tell us a little more about what you'll be doing while you're here?
Yes, so I'm very excited to be in Austin. I have my host, Dr. Lalita, also sitting in the audience. I'm so happy she is here, who sent me the invitation letter, and I'm here on a Fulbright fellowship. So yeah, as a visiting faculty, as well as to do my research, which is on visibilizing the roles of women in cinema. So I've done a lot of documentation in India, and I'm interested to get the parallel movements that have been happening simultaneously here in the US, in Hollywood. We have the two biggest film industries in two continents, so it's an exciting, interesting time. I think Santosh is by a woman filmmaker. It's in fact, her film is being nominated by the UK as the Oscar contender. We have another woman filmmaker from India, Payal Kapadia. Her film is being nominated by, is the official entry by France to the Academy Awards. And from India itself, we have Kiran Rao's film as the official entry from India. So we actually have 3 women filmmakers from 3 different countries, literally, who are like going in. It's, I think, a big moment. It's a time that you realize that women have been such a big part of storytelling and cinema, and somewhere we've not realized their contribution, or like they themselves have not. In fact, to get those images of seeing women at work, it is such a task because somewhere we've not documented it. So I'm loving that whole process.
Well, welcome back to Austin, and we're so happy you're here, and thank you for sharing this wonderful film with us. Really such an important movie for globally, and I think for our particular moment. It's very inspiring.
Thank you so much, Holly.
So happy to
Thank
have
you.
you here.
Thank you for everyone.
One quick thing, I'll scream. So one quick thing is, just like you left on Women in Cinema, Miriam just won the Best Documentary Award at in India, the National Award, which she received from the President of the country. So that's like a big award.
Yes, I hope I get to show that film again sometime. It's called From the Shadows and it's a trafficking film. I did show it as a run-up to South by Southwest, but I hope I get to show it when I'm here as well. Thank you.